GM, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FOMO Hour. Today is Monday, September 29th, 2025. Folks, FOMO Hour is so back. I'm back as well. Crypto majors, looks like they are also back. Soar here this morning. You love to see it. Last week was a little rough, but we're green to start this week, and today we're asking, is the worst behind us? We're going to break it all down on today's show. No Farouk or Mando. Mando may join us. We will see. Farouk is off in Korea for Korea Blockchain Week, but we've got Logan in the house rocking the Cubbies hat. Logan, GM, how you doing?
Hey, good morning, Tyler. I'm doing well. You picked a good week to check out. Maybe not, not so good for your wallet, perhaps, but in terms of paying attention, you could have done a whole lot worse. So it felt like a slower week. Obviously, prices dragging down, not so fun, but glad to be back and a little upswing here as well.
Yeah, it seemed like that. There was a few big pieces of news, but it didn't seem like it was those days where it was just like bang, 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 10 big headlines per day pouring in. We did have the XPL launch was a pretty big one. From a trading perspective, what that and Apex was probably two of the big ones. We'll get into it later in the show, but yeah, it was a decent week to be away. I feel like that's kind of what happens these huge conference weeks, and it seems like a lot of big players were out at last week's event and perhaps this week's event as well. We will certainly see. Was out in San Francisco and Napa Valley, Sonoma for wine country. It was quite a nice week off. I got to be in Waymos for the first time. And quick tangent, I don't know if you've ridden in a Waymo.
I have not, no.
Or a robotically driven car. Man, it is a much, much better experience. We were addicted to the Waymos over Ubers by the time we had left San Francisco. You can do whatever you want in the car. You can blast your music. You don't have to worry about conversation. You don't have to worry about the quality of the driver. There's a lot of perks. So I'm big Waymo stan. Also Tesla. I mean, Tesla FSD is also the other, effectively a Waymo competitor. So
there's no
bullish on Tesla.
There's no tipping or anything either, right? Is that another?
Yeah, no tipping. They were slightly more expensive than Ubers, though, which surprised me. I thought they would be undercutting them. So Uber still has that going for it, and they weren't always super available, and they're definitely still in test mode. But it was a fun little twist being out in San Francisco. Wine country wise, went out to Promontory. I definitely encourage any wine aficionados out there. It is one of the best wineries I've ever visited. So check that out if you are looking for a cool spot in Napa. And back to the desk. So folks, what are we talking about on today's show? It's not just going to be wine and Waymo talk. We're going to talk about markets, gold spiking to all-time highs. Crypto was very red last week, but flipping green here this week. We're going to talk SECs coming after the DATs, Vanguard eyeing crypto access, Tether eyeing a massive valuation, Aster flipping Tether in revenue. Wow. CZ leaning in even more. Meme coins, is it over? Volumes fell 50%, maybe more. Last week, we had these hyper NFTs trading at $60,000 every other minute. At this point right now, we have these NFT strategies taking off as well. So a whole lot to get into on today's show. So with that, let's just get into it. So I'll fire up the screen share for those who are in the stream. We're streaming live on X as well as Kick, folks. So make sure to join us there if you haven't already. Well, let's take a look at the board. Get into a quick market report here. Bitcoin up 3.5%, 113.4. ETH up 4%, 41.65. Solana up 4%, back at 210 or so. This comes as I think stocks are green again today. Yeah, Nasdaq's up 1%. I saw Nvidia and Tesla were up nicely here this morning as well. Gold hitting another new all-time high, 38.50. This is just not slowing down. Gold is up 45% year to date now. Which
do you have gold exposure, Tyler?
I don't. Peter Jennings trying to convince me to get in, and I've just been dragging my feet, and it's tough. I mean, it is massively outperforming Bitcoin on the year. right?
Do you want to hear my boomer? My boomer thing is like, I'm not even sure the best way to get exposure to gold. You know what I mean? I don't know what that is.
I would
So,
probably buy one of the gold related tokens on
yeah.
hype or something if I was really going to do it at this point. But yeah, I'm underexposed certainly, but gold is ripping, continuing to outperform pretty broadly. Last week the ETFs were just terrible. I don't know if folks saw this. I was catching up this morning. I believe this was the the single worst week for the ETH ETFs in their history. It was down like 800 million in outflows. Bitcoin ETFs saw about 900 million in outflows. So we'll see if that does turn around this week. And then fear and greed. Fear and greed at 39. And that does seem to match the timeline. I feel like the Ansem 90K before 120K, those calls are getting louder. And certainly Bitcoin going down to 108 last week didn't help that cause. What a wild dip. We were just kind of cruising along last week. I was in San Francisco out in Napa looking at the charts. Everything's fine. And then what was it? Was it Tuesday, Wednesday? So this would have been like Wednesday into Thursday. Yeah, things just start going south. Go from 113.8 to 111.8 to 108.5. But Logan, what were you thinking? What was going through your mind as we were seeing that crash is too strong of a word, but pretty strong dip?
Yeah, not thinking too much, not being too frightened off it. We ranged, or at least what feels like range for quite some time now. It felt like, from my perspective, covering stuff last week, it felt like just kind of an apathetic stage and sell-off. You know what I mean? That's at least DAT purchasing is down overall. The ETF outflows, as you mentioned, those catalysts are like the strong, energetic, let's get excited about market stuff. It just wasn't there, like not in headlines, not in data. And so it just really, from my perspective, Tyler, it felt like apathy across the timeline, and the price reflected it. So I wasn't thinking too much either way. Things just kind of matched and mirrored, as you mentioned with the fear and greed. It sort of just matched what my timeline was telling me as well. So I don't know. I mean, this is a nice little bounce back. We're at a kind of an interesting period of time where, you have the rate stuff that just happened. You had Trump tweeting about new tariffs last week that happened, I think, on Thursday as well. And just a little bit of uncertainty as to what exactly might happen next. And I think, if you take a look and read through some of the articles and the analysts that have spoken to folks, my colleagues at Decrypt, I think it's just that level of uncertainty, or less certainty, I should say, than there was, or what felt like there was here recently. That's kind of keeping things, I don't know, not from ranging up or down in either direction.
I do see that narrative, and that is absolutely out there. But it also feels like, are we just trying to make excuses for a scam sell-off at the end of September before October begins? And we are actively ripping here, folks. I don't know if you're looking at this. Bitcoin 113,750, effectively erasing the 4-day dip. We are back to last Wednesday's levels here, live on the show here this morning. Up, so now green on the week, actually, and then still up 5% on the month. So zoomed out, it's not that bad.
It's right? gonna break the red September curse thing, right? Or maybe not break it, but certainly buck the trend.
Yeah, I mean that what was giving me the most concern a week ago was everyone was bull posting how green September was. It was like, guys, we have 8 days left in this month. Let's not start coloring in the chart patterns just yet. And then, of course, we had the sell-off. But now, yeah, so it looks like it will likely be a green month here, headed into October, which is historically one of our stronger months. So nice little momentum. Have to be happy about that. I think one of the more, we'll talk about the DAT story because I think that is one of the most important of the week, likely drove the sell-off a bit. I think the most important story that folks aren't talking about enough is this China gold play. So I saw this Bloomberg report. This was almost a week ago, last Tuesday. China makes power play for global gold, eyes control over foreign reserves to challenge the dollar dominance. So China has clearly been leaning into gold We were just looking at the charts, up 45% year to date. Now they're trying to make a more explicit push to challenge the dollar with gold. I feel like the obvious counter for the U.S. is to go digital gold and just continue leaning further into crypto. And we know that stablecoins help benefit the dollar with how they're buying treasuries. The U.S. has the infrastructure now being put in place to have the guardrails for how we would potentially hold and operate a strategic reserve. I feel like the Bitcoin reserve is coming. And I mean one where we actually buy and go beyond just delta neutral. I'm curious if you have a read on that, Logan.
I don't have a great read or any like inside scoop type stuff to be able to say one way or another there, but I'm with you as far as the narrative goes here. China providing us an opportunity, or I should say Trump and his administration an opportunity to further lean in and say, hey, this is why it's good, right? I think it's a potential path to combating some of the naysayers or skeptics about this entire thing, right? Is if you're going to play sort of the nation versus nation thing, hey, this is why we would do this to give ourselves a leg up, as opposed to, letting China accumulate all this gold and we sort of stand idly by, and make no play to try to strengthen things on our own. So, yeah, I think narratively it certainly makes a lot of sense as a potential catalyst for that reserve. If there was going to be a reason to actually flip the switch to hit buy in a non-delta neutral way, yeah, I could see it.
I think it's very non-zero. I'm not saying it's favored by any means, but I do think it is very on the table. I'd say maybe 10 to 20% likelihood, I guess, is what I would put it at. A long shot, but bigger than 1 in 100, I guess, is kind of where I'm at.
Are there no prediction market odds up about this yet? That would actually surprise me a little bit. When you say 10 to 20%, that feels maybe a little high to me, but I don't know. I might be a little too pessimistic. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if the rules
all right.
are.
I'm in the range. U.S. National Bitcoin Reserve in 2025. If the U.S. results, if the U.S. holds any amount of Bitcoin in reserves this year.
Okay, so this isn't necessarily buying, right?
No, I think they would have to buy for this to hit.
Oh, okay, got it.
They could effectively mine Bitcoin and get it into a reserve. I guess this is what I'm saying is perhaps a little bit different than this. I'm also saying like the announcement of a reserve. I'm not sure if they would be able to operationalize it in 3 months. But interesting to say it's 15% because I think a lot of folks thought this is lower than that.
Can you go to like the 1 week? I mean, I can sort of tell, but not much. Okay.
Flat on the month. Looks like there was a brief spike to 20. Order book's not super thin. So yeah, like a 10K buy probably briefly pushes to 20. So you don't want to read too much into a spike like that, but interesting. I would have guessed this was lower without having pulled up this market. Like in my own personal thoughts aside, I feel like most folks have kind of written this off.
Yeah, I would have said lower too. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is an interesting one. The other chart I pulled up was the M2 Bitcoin. I think a large reason we've seen this growing divide between money supply and Bitcoin is because there's been a lot of printing in China, and China is just going into gold. So I think the gold M2 chart would be an interesting one, and I feel like it would probably be more in line at least this year. Because what is so gold's up 45% year to date. What's Bitcoin up year to date? Let's see, 22%. All right, so 45% versus 22%. There is a myriad market which will outperform this year, gold or Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a big dog there, but I kind of like it as the dog. Let's see. Will Bitcoin outperform gold in 2025? Yeah, you've got it at 30%. So you can get 2.5x on your money if gold rips. So you need Bitcoin to move up another 25%, basically. And gold to go flat.
And gold to be flat.
It's tough, right? It is definitely a dog. What does that mean from here? 25%, that's 140. So if you think Bitcoin goes to 150, 160 plus, this is interesting.
Yeah, you're right. You need the 150 to 160 because I don't foresee the Bitcoin, strong Bitcoin performance in Q4 throughout the rest of the year and gold staying flat. Right. So you need literally need the outperformance quite strongly here. Which, yeah, I mean, if you get a reserve announcement or you get something silly like that, definitely could happen.
What happens on a reserve announcement?
I mean, it's got to, a lot of the things we like to say here, sell the news, whatever, like something like that. Of course, the initial rumors about that at the end of last year, maybe early this year, probably facilitated a swift move up, whatever, a couple $1,000s, maybe a little bit more. I would tend to think, given the time in which has passed since those announcements, the skepticism around it happening, I would think if you saw a legitimate headline about one, you would see a pretty swift move up. My gosh, I don't know.
Say 10 to 20K candle.
I was gonna say 10,000. What's that? Like a little less than
10K candle puts us basically back to all-time high from here. So I think it would be that, but we'd probably have a few days in a row of that because that is not priced in.
I don't think so either. That's what I was trying to get at. So thanks for saying that. The other thing that could just stack on top of that is, as you mentioned, I mean, if there's this literal whether it's literal or not, this headline divide about China with gold and the United States with Bitcoin, if they further lean into that type of stuff, that to me spells price up for sure.
Yeah, I think
so. A commitment to it, whether that be in headlines and hopefully actions as well, but a commitment to that in any way, I think would definitely send us up, of course.
Switching to ETH here for a second, I think a large part of the fear and greed dropping so much, being at 39, is this ETH sell-off. So ETH was at 4,800 2 weeks ago, and then went sub 4K last week in the dip. I think it went to 38.50. I think I saw it. Perhaps maybe a touch lower than that, back at 41.80. So a nice little rebound off the bottom. We did see the news this morning that Tom Lee and BitMiner did buy another $1 billion in ETH, basically. Though they seem to be the final continuous buyer, at least at these levels, as it does feel like the DAT trade has lost some steam and it has even more headwinds, right? So arguably one of the biggest stories of last week, maybe the biggest story of last week, was the SEC and FINRA are now investigating up to 200 of these DATs, Treasury Asset Co's, who hold crypto on their balance sheet. Logan, I'm not sure if you had a chance to dig into this. What was the story here?
Yeah, so the report here is not like super, super deep. I don't think it's going to be quite that many firms. More or less, they're investigating those which there were, outside the normal trading activity, basically, right? So like strong amounts of trading, some stock spike stuff prior to the public announcements of the digital asset treasuries. So this is those firms where, and I didn't look any up specifically. Of course, there's not any named here directly, I don't believe, but this is where, kind of comes out of left field, but the stock was already up 100%, in the days leading to that actual announcement. That's the type of stuff that from my read is going to be investigated here. And, I think is totally fair and should be the stuff that is being investigated. Those are the firms that probably aren't doing it, quite as up to the regulatory, obviously, right? Not up to the regulatory snuff that's required to do this the right way. And if you're not doing it the right way, do you actually have, the shareholders' best interests at heart? Do you actually have prospective shareholders' best interests at heart? Probably not. So I think it's totally fine that they should be looking at stuff like this. So long as your DAT has a long-term plan and is, played by the book, there shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think crypto natives should be rooting this on. I think these stories of insiders buying these stocks and being the ones who win the most, and they're just dumping on actual retail buyers, like those are the negative headlines we want to avoid. But at the same time, like this story to me does not also lead into like the collapse of DATs by any means. And for one, I think the big DAT power players were likely pretty buttoned up. So I would be surprised if they are the ones who are really going to come out of this with violations. And then if it's on the smaller end, it doesn't mean that they become forced sellers. It just means that you may have some folks who face some inside trading penalties. And then even if some of the smaller DATs do somehow become forced sellers, I don't think it impacts the broader crypto space that much, right? We're not talking about BitMiner. We're not talking about SBAT or Strategy. Like if the 20th Dogecoin DAT becomes a forced seller, who cares?
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, like I was saying, I don't think you want those people holding on your behalf anyway, right? Their participation in this market, those are always the one that, we sort of cringe at, even when their public announcement comes through that, they're going to create a treasury based on XYZ token, or even if it was Bitcoin or Ethereum, they don't move the needle if it is the case that it's these smaller asset treasuries. So we don't actually know at this point in time. On the whole, though, I think this is a positive headline. I don't see how an active crypto participant could be, discouraged by the SEC wanting to, keep those participants safe. I know that seems a little cliche and kind of funny based on the SEC's involvement alongside crypto for the last few years, but you've got the crypto innovation exemption maybe coming too. So things are getting a little more friendly.
Yeah, I was trying to see I'm pulling up the dashboard here from Blockworks, one of the better crypto treasury co dashboards, to see if we have any insight into this. I thought they had an overall MNAV. Oh, here we are. I thought they had a graph of basically all of the overall aggregate MNAV. But anyways, I do think that a huge majority of CT is rooting for DATs to fail. I think largely just so they can clout chase the fact that they called them they were bad for the industry, and just to clout chase the fact that they were right. Though at the expense of largely all of our major bags. So that it's so confusing to me, the people who are actively rooting for these to fail. I also think it's too early to call these failures. They haven't had a chance, like Joe Lubin team haven't really had a chance to innovate with their ETH holdings yet and really try to show how they can earn yield in creative ways. So that's just one example. Enough time on the DATs. I want to keep moving forward. I think another big headline of the week, another one, arguably the biggest, Vanguard eyeing crypto ETF access for their brokerage clients. It's not a done deal just yet, but it looks like they are finally evaluating how they could perhaps allow access to crypto ETF trading on their platform. And folks, this is a big one. We've talked about Vanguard before, one of the final players in the old guard to kind of hold the line and say no crypto. I recently just transferred my 401k out of Vanguard for this very reason. They're one of the biggest, I think second biggest, 10 trillion in assets, 50 million customers. So if this one does go through, I mean, it's not hard to do some back of the napkin math, right? Of what even ongoing 1% allocation to crypto could look like, what an upfront rebalancing could look like at this scale. It's big dollars. Logan, any reactions to this? Do you think it's going to go through? Perhaps on what timeline, if so?
Yeah. Well, if you read through here, I mean, methodical, I think, is the word that's used. It feels like that's very much on brand, as it's been, forever now, and it's still not there. I do think eventually, yes, you have to succumb to what I assume is some pressure from clients. You yourself, right, transferred away because of the inability. I suspect that has been happening, right? So I do think it'll eventually go through. I wouldn't get my hopes up about any swift turnaround here on something like this. They've already taken this much time. It doesn't really matter probably if they wait another 6 months to a year, right, to finally implement things. So
where I would disagree with you on that is they do face more exits. Like I exited in the last 3 months.
yeah,
And if they would have at least shown that it was on the roadmap, I probably don't do that. Like if they say it was coming Q4, I probably say, okay, I'll hold off. And I think the longer they wait, the more that they do face. I mean, they're not going to see like a large exodus, but a couple percent maybe.
sure.
What's also jumped out to me when I was researching this morning, I forgot that their new CEO, Salim Ramji, is a BlackRock vet and oversaw the launch of their IBIT, the Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock, which is one of the most successful ETFs in ETF history. So he has his hands on that, has the deep experience. So to me, this is a pretty obvious matter of when and not if.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. Is it going to happen in 2025? That is a harder bet. I feel like if I was betting on a prediction market, if I was setting the line, I'd say it's a coin toss, 50-50 for some kind of announcement in 2025. Implementation in 2025, I'd say is closer to probably like 15%.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. It's just sorry. I mean, it's already October. You have the holidays. You have, it's just tougher to get stuff done. I would imagine it's more difficult to get stuff done here, especially with the financial year ending and whatever. So,
yeah, no Vanguard markets.
Oh wow,
we'll have to talk to our friends at MYRIAD.
Coming soon, I'd imagine.
Let's get a Vanguard market here. Let's just double check to make sure we don't have one. No, not yet. So expect one of those perhaps to come. Other big news kind of keeping us moving here, Tether. Oh, look at the author, Logan Hitchcock. So you can tell us all about this. 500 billion Tether?
Yeah. So actually, this was a separate headline from a few days after, but earlier in the week, I think that was Thursday that I wrote that. Earlier in the week, there was a report from, I believe, Bloomberg. Yeah, there you go. From Bloomberg about Tether seeking 15 to 20 billion for a 3% equity stake, which would put them in the same conversation as far as private companies and valuations go as SpaceX, OpenAI. I mean, these are big dogs, right? That's what they're seeking to be. And then the second headline that I wrote about here was that among those potentially participating in that fundraising round were rumored to be SoftBank and ARK Invest. ARK Invest, of course, Cathie Wood's investment management firm, and then super notable tech investor SoftBank. So no comments from them. We don't know, too much details about the level of their participation, but yeah, this is just further detail that Tether is a behemoth in this space. One of the notes that I saw from that, Bloomberg report that I thought was really interesting was, this type of activity from folks like SoftBank, from folks like ARK Invest, kind of further entrenches stablecoins alongside tech companies and alongside finance, right? At this point in time, stablecoins, I think probably the top thing from this entire year. Bitcoin all-time high notwithstanding, all the headlines about our further entrenchment with Bitcoin, asset reserves, whatever. Stablecoins have been the story this year, in my opinion. And so they have entrenched themselves in mainstream financial activities. This type of stuff just further solidifies that and validates their existence here. As folks like Scott Bessent have been screaming for us as well, and we've kind of rallied behind as a means to say that, hey, crypto is kind of real. This this is very much, I think, just a continuation of that trend. Nothing, not too much else to say about that raise at this point in time. To me, it's a little bit of confirmation bias on all those points I just mentioned, but it is real validation that this is this is a thing, and then of course you have the plasma stuff from last week too. There's so much in the stablecoin world that is going on. It's a very, very, very real, tons of momentum that's happening in the space.
I would agree. Number one story of this year is the stablecoin explosion. Tether, I also was just casually looking at CoinMarketCap, and Tether now has flipped XRP in market cap.
Yeah. It was there last week as well. Or at least I use CoinGecko. So it was third last week, at least at one point. Maybe it was late last week. But yeah, more than 2x USDC in terms of total market cap. And I was, looking just to keep rattling off some numbers. Stablecoin market caps in total are up like 122 billion in the last year. That's per DeFi Llama. So I think we were at like around this time, we were at like last year, we were at around 175 billion in total market cap for stablecoins. Now it's like 296 billion now. So
the chart tells the story right there. Yeah, stablecoins are actively exploding. I did show up the Circle stock. So I know a lot of I have good friends. Jeeps, Circle short. They're Circle bears. I don't know, man. Like, I understand the bear case for Circle, but Tether's raising at 500 billion and Circle's sitting at 30 billion. I know they're very different companies, but they're in the same industry sector, rather. USDC is at 70. Like, as a total noob, just looking at this, right, and without going into the in depths of the bear and bull cases for the companies, USDC's got 40% of Tether's on-chain market cap with stables, and they're trading at 1/16th rather, or what's the math? Yeah, like 1/16th of this recent raise. I don't know. Circle kind of looks cheap to me. It's up 7.5% today. So I don't know. I think I'd be thinking about closing those.
Yeah. So just to know, the raise has not happened. So we don't know, right? Of course, that they will ultimately be able to do that. But being reported, of course, and I would imagine, just given the fervor around stablecoins, that they probably have a pretty good idea of what they're capable of raising. And, if those are the numbers being thrown around, they'll probably be able to do so. I have not, it's been a bit, so I don't know exactly Jeeb's bear case or anybody's bear case about Circle. But the thing that I think about is, if boomers are looking to get exposure to stablecoins and they realize that, of course, USDC and, USDT, USAT, whatever's coming, right? The stablecoins coming from Tether for the United States. They realize those don't go up, of course. Where do you put your money if you want to get the picks and shovels?
Circle stock. Circle stock,
right?
Do it. Yeah. So I don't know. I would not be short. I would just go on record saying that. Tied to this Tether news, XPL, the plasma token, did officially TGE, I think, Thursday? And man, this was one of those that it was so obvious in hindsight. Like, it just sat there on the pre-market, was widely available at 70 cents, headed into their TGE. And even after the Tether 500 billion news, I think it sat there in that 75 cent, 80 cent range. It TGE'd, and then boom, straight easy double. Just a straight up 2x on TGE day, went from 70 to $1.40, kind of chopped, consolidated for a day, went up to $1.60 on a Saturday, and now has been kind of selling off a bit. Curious where this one goes from here. Did you trade this, Logie? Did you watch this one? Any reactions to XPL, or perhaps the XPL thoughts going forward?
Yeah, no, I didn't trade it. Just been following loosely. Of course, it was one of the top stories near the back half of the week when there wasn't, too much actually happening. But as I was just noting, right, as you think about ways to potentially gain exposure to this sector, which everybody is sort of in, at least to my knowledge, is sort of consensus that it's going to continue to grow. There aren't many super great ways to gain that type of exposure. So this makes a lot of sense to me as to why you would have seen such interest, kind of right off the rip. So
I still think, yeah. Sorry to cut you off.
I was just going to say, I mean, I don't have too much else to say about it. I mean, they're one of the first to market of these sort of stablecoin specific blockchains, right? Like, there's not a whole lot of ways. Everybody wants to be able to bet on it in some way, right? Like, I want to be able to bet on it in some way. I'm not really doing so right now, so it's a little hypocritical. But if you foresee the growth of stablecoins in the way that all of these folks, folks much smarter and much more plugged in than I am, see, you have to find opportunities to get those picks and shovels plays or whatever, right? And this is the type of stuff that gives you that exposure. You can sort of buy it, close your eyes, zoom out, and maybe you wake up in 5 years if you really want to, right? Wake up in 5 years and stable coins are at a whatever Besson said. What do you say? We're at 293 billion. They're at 10x that in 10 years or whatever. Who knows?
I think there's a couple aspects of this trade, right? There's the access to stable coins. There's just a way to get access to Tether, the company. This is one of the only ways to do that as a de facto trade. But then the whole the plasma neobank, right? And I was off last week, so I missed some of the details on this, but it seems like they're really leaning into this new age bank concept based on their stable coins offering higher yields, lower fees, and disrupting payments and banking. There's something here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and if you'll recall, Circle and all those others applied for those national, at least in the United States, I'm not exactly sure the terminology for it, but the national or the federal banking license as well, because that was opened up by the comptroller, the office of the comptroller. I don't know, maybe in May or something. They wrote that letter that said that national banks could custody crypto and stuff like that. So all part of all those headlines in which, you know, things are just becoming more friendly towards crypto and more friendly towards stablecoins, of course, as well. All of those players, right, making a push. There's just so much momentum. I mean, there's too many headlines to be able to run back through and check into, but seems like only up for sure for stablecoin growth.
And speaking of Tether and revenue, guess who flipped them in the last day? Aster, $28 million in fees in the last 24 hours, beating out Tether and Circle, 7 and 8x what Hyperliquid's bringing in. They've done 93 million in fees in the past 7 days now, which is almost 4x what Hyperliquid has done. Wow, and they've already flipped Hyperliquid on the month, even though they've really been only been used for about a week. So it was a hell of a week for Aster. The token, of course, had quite the run. When it got the CZ tout, quickly ran from around 10 cents basically straight up to $2. Had that first pullback to $1.30, made fresh all-time highs about 5 days ago, $2.40. Now kind of chopping in this $1.80 to $2 range. I think everyone's taking the volume stats with a grain of salt. They do have an airdrop coming. I believe it's coming October 5th, which will be a huge airdrop. The perp dex volumes are just they're off the charts. Like, they don't really even make sense. Like, look at this. The perp volume chart is one of the most shocking charts of the year, right? So average perp dex volume per day over the summer was somewhere in the probably the $20 billion range. Some outliers in the 30 to 40 range. And then now we're at 100 billion on a Sunday. So folks are clearly heavily farming Aster, and it does seem like perp dex meta is upon us. Whether it's actually a meta or just, you know, a new hot sector that's going to be around forever, it probably will be. Well, it's not new by any means, but there are some new players who are making it more exciting. Aster with 83.5 billion in volume in the past day, lighter, which I wasn't even familiar with a week ago, has flipped Hyperliquid. They did 7 billion. And then Apex is in this discussion as well. I saw their token launch and had a great couple of days last week as well. Curious if you just have any reactions or takes on this broader perp dex. So while perp trading is not new, this type of attention and volume is new. I think it's fair to call that a meta. I think we are seeing folks who aren't historically perps traders doing more perps trading.
Yeah.
Curious if you have reactions to that. Is it going to last?
Oh boy, I do have some reactions to that. One, I don't think it's really that good. I sort of hope it's a meta. You know, it sounds maybe a little whatever, scaredy cat, like whatever. I'm a degenerate and I love to gamble too, but this stuff is, you know, if you want to do it and you want to do it seriously, like, you got to put in the time and effort, and you have to be willing to stomach a lot of the swings, right? The crazy swings that happen in this market. And I really don't think it's for the majority of people. And in this environment right now, this meta right now, it feels like it's trying to become, for every person in this market. It is the thing to do right now. And I'm really hopeful that that is not the case always, right? So I don't believe it will be, but right now there's just not too much else to do on chain, so people are just trading perps. I think, of course, this is all, ignited by Hyperliquid's airdrop, and dreams and aspirations of something similar. That to me is that's the catalyst here, in my opinion. And I can't blame people. I definitely don't blame people for seeing what transpired. But it's one of those things, at least from my experience and watching a lot of the airdrop stuff, the meta stuff. It's not to say that some folks, many folks have already printed on Aster. It's not to say that the airdrop won't, reward a lot of folks handsomely. It definitely will. But it's that law of diminishing returns thing to me, or, the little loops graphic that you share from time to time as well, right? Aster is one of those smaller loops from Hyperliquid, and all of the others will be even smaller loops from Aster until we find the next thing. That's my feeling on it. Of course, perps is never going away. Of course, I'm right there with you. I don't know that I'm ready to say that perps trading is going to be, an Olympic sport. You saw those headlines from Korea, the streaming and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm ready to commit to that. It's going to be here, the financialization of everything. I'm totally with all you folks on that. I'm not disputing any of it at all. Maybe it's a little bit of me like hoping we can find something a little bit different to do. Because I'm not a perps trader. I open one up every once in a while. I traded on Aster last week just to see what it was like, collect some points. I think I'm on the Tyler D referral team.
Yeah.
I had like I don't even know exactly what my leverage. I think like somewhere between 20 and 30x. I just slid the little bar that got liquidated on last week, alongside I'm sure a lot of other folks. Like more than $1 billion in liquidations last week. So I hope there is other stuff to do, but I cannot, of course, fade the force of it right now. It's too big to ignore right now. I don't think it will always be that way. The volumes may always be as big as they are. As you get more people on chain, you get more people trading. But in terms of the in-your-faceness that I'm feeling from this meta right now, I don't think it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think one, you mentioned the smaller roller coaster loops, maybe, but this is a big airdrop, right? There's a reason why folks are farming this so hard. I mean, Aster is already a top 21 crypto token by FTV.
That's so wild. That's so stupid.
So it is already at 15 billion. Hyperliquid's at 47. But where was Hyperliquid launched much lower than, right? Hyperliquid, like my first buy was at 9. It opened at 3 on the first day. So that's at like a 3 billion FTV. So I think this is actually a larger roller coaster loop from an airdrop perspective. There is more capital up for grabs. But it is very crowded, obviously. I think it's going to be hard for your casual person to really make a dent. On Aster versus Hyperliquid, I think I see that the common consensus that their perps platform is trash or whatever. As a casual perps trader, to me, I think it's fine. Like it feels very much like Hyperliquid. If I hadn't seen that consensus take on the timeline that Hyperliquid is much better, I would have thought they were exactly the same.
Yeah. So I've traded on both. Again, I'm not a sophisticated perps trader either. So a lot of the nuance perhaps is lost on me, but it felt fine to me. And actually, of course, a little bit easier onboarding. I think that's indisputable as as a participant here. But if I were going to be trading perps, and I know I can't think of the names of the protocols or anything, but I know there are some, working on, I would want the very, very simple, like 10x, I'm long, that's what, or the almost like the Tinder style swipe left, right. I know there are some protocols working on that. I think Mega ETH has maybe 1 or 2 doing so, and some others on other chains as well. That's what I would be utilizing. Very simple, degenerate gambling if I were going to be trading perps, because I'm not drawing lines and doing TA. It's just not who I am. It's not in my skill set. That's what this platform is for, in my opinion. So,
yeah. As an Aster holder, I will disclose I do hold the token. I still think this is going much higher. I think that the criticism that it's not as good, I feel like they've got time to continue to iterate on the product, and now they clearly have seen the market's response, so that they will continue to work on this and refine it and make it better. I think it's also clear that CZ is leaning in very heavily, whether that means buying the token or just giving it support. I mean, he's talking about this thing every single day. So when the most powerful man in crypto is leaning into a protocol, I pay attention to it. So I think this is going to be around for a while. I don't think it's a flash in the pan by any means. I was talking with a good friend in Napa, and we were talking about, like, I feel like meme coin trading has this like very negative connotation to it, or just broader market outlook, while perps trading is thought to be like on a pedestal, although it is absolutely just a different form of gambling, and arguably worse. It is worse to get liquidated than to have your meme coin go down 90%, because at least your meme coin down 90% can come back. Your liquidated perps position cannot. So you can save all your holier than thou talk for me. Perps trading is not holier than anything else.
Yeah, no, I am sorry, Tyler. I am so there with you. And I think some of it is because it's just harder to do, right? There's like more terminology. There's more like, it's more complex than buying a meme coin, right? In and out of a position. And I think that is, whether right or wrong, probably wrong, led to some belief that those who trade it are more sophisticated or smarter or whatever, right? Regardless of performance. And so, yeah, I'm with you. I think there is some sort of pedestal provided to perps. But with that being said, people love to do it. People absolutely love to do it. So, yeah.
And on that note, I think people love to trade memes as well. I'm pulling up the meme dashboard and metrics from last week. And this is one I was not paying attention to last week, and I started kind of catching up over the weekend. What a brutal week. Just a full on 50 to 60% drawdown across the board, and new tokens deployed, daily graduates, launchpad volume, and then of course revenue down. Daily active addresses down a fair amount as well. Then here's revenue, of course, down as well, below the 1 million mark for the first time in a month or so. Is this because of perps, conference week, just overall being tired of memes, any and all of it? And then this is a paradigm shift, or are we reading too much into this?
Yeah, I think it's D, all of the above. Just a confluence of whatever, tiredness, because you had an insane run the week before, not necessarily in individual memes, but in like the pump price, might be 2 weeks before, whatever the actual timing is. But you had some excitement around that sector and the revenue generating stuff, of course. So I think it's just a blip. Memes are not going anywhere. It's not like folks don't want to gamble on it. They definitely do. But Aster took the timeline by storm, and now everybody's a perps trader. And perhaps in 2 weeks, maybe let's say Pump announces their airdrop, whatever, right? Like if that happened today, you could see this stuff flip on a dime. Maybe not. Maybe you need to wait till, if I'm Pump and I have an airdrop idea or plan, I'm probably waiting until after October 5th.
Yeah, so October 6th. Alan he's a smart guy. He'll wait for October 6th. I'm with you. I think the overreactions to the death of meme coins again has been too swift. And like, I get it. Like there was 3 or 4 obvious trades in the past few weeks. Like you had the pump 3x off the bottom. Then you had the Aster 10 to 20x, whatever it was. XPL was an obvious trade. And even Apex, maybe. I wasn't around as much for that one. But I think a lot of folks caught it. And yeah, so these are real protocols with real revenue. And that it is more, some people say more fun, maybe better for the space to invest in those assets. And I totally agree. But I don't think someone who's showing up at their desk today is looking at those assets and say, I'd rather trade those here at these current prices than trying to catch a 10 to 20x on a new meme. So I think my point is, I don't think that the meme coin casino was going away. But it was a perfect confluence last week. It probably spills into this week. Clearly, the volume is over on perps right now. and that's not going to change before October 5th. But will it change in Q4? Probably. Like, I don't think we're going to be doing 100 billion a day for all Q4. And if we are, then it's just going to be absolute mania. But one meme at least was able to survive and have quite the week. Punk strategy and just the broader NFT strategy tokens. I was following this at arm's length, but also noticing the engagement hack. That if you were low on engagement, you just want to tweet out something about punk strategy, and you will get lots of love. So that is a tip for all the content creators out there. Look at this chart. It is absolutely beautiful. This thing is hanging out at $79 million right now. On last Monday's show, this was at 17 million. It had its first pump, sell off, had a kind of a repump, and then a sell off again. It looked like maybe that was the range it was kind of destined to trade in, that $15 to $30 million range, and perhaps still at risk of kind of just slowly bleeding out to zero. But man, it looks like the launch of an announcement of the new NFT strategies was a big win. And then just the fact that it continues to accumulate. Did it get its last one? No, it hasn't gotten it yet. So they're 96% of the way to their 18th punk held, 17 in current holdings. Now some nice ones on this list.
Yeah, I like that red hair.
This is a nice one. The pipe is definitely above floor.
Ooh, the clown nose too.
The smoking headband. Even this, like this is a clean dildo head with sunglasses. So they're starting to have quite the collection. Where I'm going to see, like, where are they in overall holders? But while I pull that up, Logan, reactions to punk strategy, NFT strategy, where do you think it goes?
Yeah, geez. This is a tough one, Tyler, because we had this flagged in a mutual group really early. 1 million. And I vividly remember this because there is a town in Pennsylvania called Intercourse, PA. And I happened to be there on that day. That's why I remember this. I was in a stupid gift shop when it was flagged, and I was just like, this is interesting. I thought about swapping to it. And then, of course, there was some early FUD, and then, I was just out and about, so I didn't ever do it. And then I sort of just sat idly by and watched others eventually participate. And now for me, I'm on the sidelines, at least at this point in time. All that being said, I think this is fantastic because one, I love the weird, innovative stuff. I don't even think this is that weird, but this is this is taking advantage of innovative tokenomic architecture, right? Mechanisms with fees. And the second part that I think is most important here is you're like creating this community and this collective that wants to root for the same thing. And that's typically what you need to make prices go up. It was interesting to me that you referred to this as a meme coin, because I wouldn't categorize it as such, but the mechanics of it, the community aspect, are very meme adjacent, in my opinion. And that is what's helped it. To me, what helps propel things like this, right? You need everybody to get super excited about the dog with a hat to get the price to go up. Same thing here. Like, you want everybody rooting for it to buy the next punk to get price to go up here as well. So I think these are awesome. I'm totally on board with them. I am not smart enough to like sit down and do the math on what makes total sense. As far as like where an ultimate range may be for something like this, right? And what you need the NFTs to do versus what you don't. I can't answer for any of those because there's probably a price at which it doesn't make sense. But I think the motives here, and I think the community aspect and everybody rooting for the same thing is awesome. And I think it's not everybody rooting for people to go out and do stupid stunts that are perhaps dangerous, CCM,
CCM really came and left really quickly. And you're right. I didn't mean I sagged off meme coins. I would also not classify this as a meme coin. More of a utility, like a utility token. It's probably a better play. Fair. It's also a speculative asset, and I've heard Cirrus described it as kind of a call option on Punk future.
Sure.
Which is an interesting way to think about it. It's not an MNAV play. So yes, it is more interesting the more punks they hold, but I don't believe this is trading at some multiple of the underlying value of their punks. And I don't think they will continue to be measured like that by the market.
Got it.
I think there's a lot of intangibles. I think there is the excitement play. There's the community play, the tokenized aspects of exposure to punks. And then the actual mechanism of selling, right? When the sells actually come through, what is that going to do to the chart? And of course, the higher the token is, the less impact that will be the sell and buyback and burn of the token. But it is an exciting experiment. And then the other piece is they're proving out this broader NFT strategies model. We're seeing excitement in these downstream NFT collections. Their floors are running. They're buying and burning quite a bit. And then what, 1% of all those fees go back to buying and burning punk strategies. So now you also have that as an ongoing flywheel. And I think all the major NFT collections are going to have one. Another SEG, arguably the most exciting NFT we've had maybe since the other deeds, Hypers, the Hyperliquid Genesis NFT, which was airdropped to early users, maybe EVM power users. I don't know the exact criteria of who got these. But the price action is out of this world. So these are holding a 1338 hype floor. That is roughly $60,000. They've seen 1.4 million hype volume in the last 24 hours, which is over $60 million. So 60 million in NFT volume, folks. That is a lot. That is off the charts for what we've seen recently in this space. So the demand is through the roof. I've already seen some chatter of hyper strategy, which could absolutely take this thing to the next level. The art is good. It's not an art play. I am curious for your read on the hypers and if they're a buy at 60K.
If they're a buy at 60K, man, it's really difficult to tell anybody to buy an NFT for 60K. The one thing I would say is that hype has enriched a lot of people and enriched them a lot. So if there's a way to flex that you got rich on hype, if you wish to do so, this is how you do it. And for a lot of folks for a long time on Ethereum or in crypto in general, that was via CryptoPunks. And this, it's a little weird to be comparing a one-day-old NFT to CryptoPunks, of course. I don't mean to do so quite so literally, but if you wanna, flex yourself, this, I get it. And so, 60,000 fair price, I don't know. It's really difficult to say that seems right. But it definitely makes sense that the leading NFT on hype, which is going nowhere anytime soon, or, the leading status symbol, I should at least say for hype, it makes sense that it would be right up there, inside the top 5 or 10, as far as NFT collections go.
They're expensive, but I also think these probably trade higher. I think a lot of people think they're going to trade much higher. So there's a lot of ranges of outcomes. I think we'll spend more time talking about these NFTs on future shows because I see we are at the top of the hour, and I think the bull case and bear case takes a little bit more time to really go through. So perhaps we will save that for tomorrow. But man, I knew we had a lot to catch up on. And Logan, I don't think we even got through your list. So maybe we'll save some stories for tomorrow. Good. But man, we are so back. It's been good to chat with you all. I want to thank all of our listeners for tuning in here this morning. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern to cover all of today's action. Until then, go make it a beautiful day. Goodbye.